What is going on, guys? It's the Mad Dragon. Welcome back to another preview video for the Six Nations 2022. If no one's ever seen these videos before, this is where we chuck on a game of Rugby 22 in the background of the teams that are going to be playing over the weekend. And then over the top, we're going to be looking at the official teams that have been announced, going through every single player, our thoughts on who we think might do well, who we think might do badly, and finally we give a score prediction for what we think might be the outcome of the actual game. This one's going to be between Scotland and England, so let's get this game kicked off and underway. Alrighty, Finn Russell will get us kicked off and underway. We'll start out to the right. We've got a little bit of wind. We'll just see if we can quickly catch the ball. Yes, we do, but it's a false start. Of course it is. Right, so let's talk about this game coming up. Scotland versus England. This was a huge game last year. Of course, we saw Scotland managing to beat England in Twickenham in a real bizarre game. England really underperforming. Scotland came in with much more fury for that game than I was getting ready for, and I can't wait to see this one again this year. Let's start off talking about Scotland, because we are playing as Scotland in the game. They are the home team. So Scotland last year in the Six Nations had what I believe was technically their best ever Six Nations finish. They had a really good tournament. They came in with a very different setup. It was far more attacking. They seem to have moved far more away now from being this sort of counter-attack team that was hoping to sort of pick and get tries where they could do. They've really turned themselves into a much more aggressive attacking team. Speed of ball from rucks is getting faster, getting it wider, quicker, managing to get round the outside. They've started employing a couple more larger boys, all happening to come from South Africa. A lot of South African born players coming in now, but the size difference in them, they're no longer having to dodge tackles, they're smashing through tackles, which is so nice to see from Scotland. They are finding more and more ways to become the danger team, and certainly took a couple of teams last year by surprise, beating England at home and then having a really good game against France, which I thought was superb, and even had a couple of players go off with the Lions tour as well, which was so nice for a couple of them. So I think Scotland coming into this will feel very confident. So let's have a look at the team that is going to be coming up against England this year. Starting out with the forwards in this front row. Rory Sutherland is a name I feel like I haven't said for a little while. Nice to see him back in the team. George Turner coming in that hooker position, and Xander Fagerson in that tight head shirt. Now, in all honesty, it's a bit of a shame to not see... I'm going to call him Schumann. It's also Schumann. Some people have told me I think it's pronounced Schumann more than that. It's a bit of a shame to not see him, but he is going to be starting on the bench, so I imagine they believe England are going to be loading up those forwards, and they want to put the heavy boys on later on, just to not give in to that England scrum. We know how much Eddie Jones loves that second half England scrum. It's quite a lot like the South African team putting on that bomb squad, except England just load up on forwards and try and use that to their advantage, so I don't think that's a terrible move. Looking back towards the locks, Johnny Gray and Grant Gilchrist going in here. Now, this was a combo that was working okay last year. They certainly have improved on the lineouts. They are doing much better, I think, in terms of attacking lineouts. I'm still not seeing a great deal of turnovers from Scotland in sort of defensive lineouts, but they are managing to get there. Their driving mauls are certainly working better. We've certainly seen the likes of people like George Turner going over the line from driving mauls and stuff. So I think on the aggressive, they're doing very well, but both very apical jumpers now going to be going in that line-out. Looking at the back row, Jamie Ritchie, Hamish Watson and Matt Fagerson. This is a bit of a staple now in the Scotland team. So, you know, there's a lot to talk about here, but we've already said this. I say this in every single video. Hamish Watson and Jamie Ritchie, two of the best breakdown players in the game at the minute. Jamie Ritchie also more than happy to get himself involved with that line-out. So it's nice to see that Scotland might actually have a potential here for 3 jumpers in the line-out. That will apply more pressure. We know how much England love their line-outs and their scrums as a platform to launch attacks from. I don't think it's a terrible move to have more jumpers in your team rather than just sort of dedicated locks or flankers that are just much better at terms of like breakdown situations. I think jumpers will be useful. Hamish Watson, did he get Player of the Year last year in terms of the Six Nations? He was very good. And Matt Fagerson, I did call him the mini CJ Stander, but with no CJ Stander around now, he's now the normal Matt Fagerson, I guess he's going to be known as. Nice to see him going back in that 8 shirt. Big running back, loves running from deep. Hopefully we get to see that this weekend. I'm really looking forward to this game. In terms of the fullback and the scrum half, Ali Price and Finn Russell. This is, of course, what we expect now from this Scotland team. This is pretty much now the set roster. We'll probably be seeing this going towards the World Cup now. I can't imagine anyone particularly overtaking either of these two people in this position unless any injuries come in. Bit of a shame for Adam Hastings not to be involved so much with the Scotland team after some of his issues that he's had. But nice to see Finn Russell back in this team. Of course, got off with the Lions as well, and had a good line still. So you know what? Nice to see Finn Russell in this team. In terms of the centre partnership then, Sam Johnson and Chris Harris. Again, this is a team now that is becoming a much more staple. I did think Hugh Jones had a really good game last year, and his good game actually allowed me to win the Fantasy League, so I was more than happy with that. But I think in terms of your centre partnership, this is a really good setup. I think Chris Harris, for me, I would rate higher than Sam Johnson, but Chris Harris's defence work last year was awesome. It was one of my big downsides for Chris Harris, was his defensive work wasn't that good, and last year he really stepped up. It was much more impressive for me. So I see him in that 13 shirt. Sam Johnson just tends to find himself in desperate areas trying to do anything with the ball. So I still think he's a very good player, but that maybe I would look for a different 12 there, but I know that people like Redpath and stuff still maybe not available to go in this team for this game. In terms of the back row, Duan van der Merwe starting on that left wing, Darcy Graham in 14 and Stuart Hogg in that 15 shirt. Now, I actually haven't had a look. I wonder how close this team is to the team that played England last year. There must be a lot of similarities. This is pretty much now the 1 to 15 Scotland love. There's a couple of swap arounds in the front row. But I think from 4 through to 15, this is like the Scotland team now. So this is nice to see. Duan van der Merwe, of course, that sort of utility back. You can use him as a forward if you need him just to smash into a few people and use him in the pick and goes. Nothing wrong with that. Certainly gets himself over the line. Weaknesses in Duan van der Merwe, though, is going to be that aerial battle. He's certainly not. I don't even think he's very good at all. He's actually sort of bad in the aerial battles. He sort of relies on his height more than his jumping, catching. So if I was England, especially with some of the England backs that love aerial combat, I would be aiming for Duan van der Merwe on some of the upper enders and trying to win some of the aerial battles there. Darcy Graham, really looking forward to see. Having watched the Scotland-Wales game last year, the only reason Scotland lost that game for me was because Darcy Graham went off to cover the Xander Ferguson red card. So really nice to see him. I think he'll be raring to go for this game. And then finally in that fullback position, Stuart Hogg, of course, in there with the captaincy. Scotland love this one captain, two vice-captain thing going on. Again, really good Six Nations from Stuart Hogg last year. It was, for me, the best one I've seen from him in at least 4 or 5 years. I think he had a better Six Nations than he did when he went off with the Lions, but I think he's done very well. The countering was very good. The kicking was very good for him. Really looking to see what he does. He's become less selfish now in terms of his running play. He actually gives a pass when there's a 2-on-1 rather than just attempting to take it himself, which I'm liking seeing. Certainly growing as a player, and I think this, as a Scotland 1 to 15, is looking really good. We are coming up to half-time in the game in the background, so we will quickly check out the replacements. Starting off, front row replacements, Stuart McAnally, Pierre Schoeman, and WP Nell. So again, this is a heavy set of replacements here. They've not necessarily gone for maybe the technical players, but certainly weight is what I would call this. So maybe they're expecting this game to be quite open in the first half, and then in that second half is when it will begin to just work its way down to the forwards. We do know England love to get off to a clean start, try and get a try within the first 5-10 minutes. They use the backs, they spread it wide, they're kicking it to the air. They don't really like going for the forward technique straight off. They like to try and get a try under their belt and then sort of reserve the game down a bit more. So I don't think it's a terrible move just to have you necessarily maybe some of your quicker forwards on to start off with, and then actually bring on the big boys later on. I don't think that's a terrible move at all. Replacement forwards as well going in here, Sam Skinner and Magnus Bradbury. So again, tall boys, weighty boys going in. I mean, I know they're rugby players. I mean, they're always going to be tall and heavy. But again, I would say they're probably heavier than some of the players that are currently on the field. Again, I would have it much more as a strength and speed currently on the field, and a couple of replacements there. I mean, I'll say that Sam Skinner's not necessarily the heaviest man, but he's certainly a big boy. So I can see them coming on. I think, again, just bolstering that thing. Did semi-expect them to go for a 6-2 here. Ben White, I'm struggling to picture off the top of my head. It's a bit of a shame on these graphics. They don't have everyone's face. I can't think of Ben White off the top of my head. Blair Kinghorn becoming in that 22 shirt, of course, covering the fullback, the wings, the fly half, pretty much anywhere you want him to go, he will cover. Doesn't get as much game time anymore because for whatever reason, but I do like Blair Kinghorn. And then finally, in the 23 shirt, Tui Pelotu, who was a player I did not know a lot about. I've been following the United Rugby Championship a little bit more, and he's doing really, really well. I'm really excited to see him come into this team. Tui Pelotu, it doesn't say he's making his debut, so he might have already played once before for Scotland, but I certainly haven't seen a lot from him in a Scotland jersey, but I'm really looking forward to see what this boy does. Very, very quick, very good at finding the gaps when he needs to, and a very, very strong lad will get over that try line, so I think that's a really good move. So as I want to do 1 of 23 here, this is a good-looking Scotland team. This is a pretty solid team. They know what they're doing. They're well gelled together. They're going to be playing at home. I think Scotland would be looking for a really, really good game here. So, we need to talk about their opponents, England, who last year did the exact opposite of Scotland and had, I believe, their worst finish ever. Now, they certainly worked on improving that. Eddie Jones was not happy with that Six Nations last year. He said in all sorts of different, conversations with reporters and stuff, we're cutting down this team, we're sorting this out before the World Cup. Not happy with these lads. The big boys aren't performing, then they're going. They've got rid of big names now. They're replacing it. A lot of youngsters coming in, really looking to build towards that World Cup, which I don't think is a terrible move. So looking at the team going into this game, Ellis Genge starting off in that front row alongside Luke Cowan-Dickie and Kyle Sinclair. Now again, this is a bit more of an experienced forward side. I just said about youngsters. There's no youngsters here. These are well-capped lads who enjoy going forwards. Of course, England love their scrum. They're going to love going into this. I think the scrum is going to be quite a big area in this game. Whoever takes over the scrum is certainly going to have a real advantage in this game. Both teams love trying to take over that area. Luke Cowan-Dickie very good at running with the ball, but also we've seen him get more than enough tries from that little tap and go that they do on the 5 metre rather than kicking for the line out. No need for that anymore. Head down, run forwards, face first. That's the way to go. So I think that could be a good move. In the lock department, Maro Toja in that 4 shirt, where we're so used to seeing him now, and Nick Isekwe? I'm going to butcher that lad's name, unfortunately. Not a name I know, so nice to see a new name for me. I'm sure plenty of you guys will know him more than enough, and you can drop down in the comments just how good he is. Not a name I know straight off the bat. I don't even recognise his face that much, actually. So hopefully he has a really good game for them. In the back row, Lewis Ludlam moving into that 6 shirt. Tom Curry remaining as a captain for this game. Bit of a surprise. I know he did play a couple of captains last year, but going in there, of course, no Farrell this year, so nice to see him in that 7 shirt. And Sam Simmons at 8. It's nice to see Eddie Jones putting players where I prefer them. Not that he cares what I think, but I think that's a good move. Sam Simmons at 8, showing off last year, having a really good series with the Lions and doing well with England. And Tom Curry, much prefer him in that 7 shirt to either the 6 or the 8, so more than happy with that. Looking towards the backs, Ben Youngs and Marcus Smith. Of course, no Farrell. I don't think that's a bad thing. I think it's actually going to open England up a lot more. No need for Farrell at 12. No need for 2 fly halves to play off each other. No need for people like Marcus Smith to try and adapt. He can now run his own game. I think that's a good move. Ben Youngs, for me, is still first choice scrum half for them. Marcus Smith, really looking to see more from him. Had a really good year last year. Looking forward to see more from that boy. In the centre partnership, Henry Slade and Elliot Daly. Elliot Daly just seems to be moving to that 13 shirt now. Certainly played way better at 13 than he did at 15 last year. So I don't think that's a terrible move. Henry Slade can do both. But also as a distributor from inside centre, I might probably prefer him over Farrell, to be honest. He's also got a really good boot on him when he needs to be, so nothing wrong there. And then finally in this back 3, Joe Marchant, Freddie Stewart and Max Malin. So speed, air, speed and kicking is what I would call that. Yeah, this back row, I don't think they'll be opening this up straight away. But I think when these 3 boys get away, if you give them any inch of space, they are going to make absolute full use of that. Freddie Stewart came out of nowhere for me personally, but is playing exceptional rugby. I think all 3 of these lads are running directly at Duhan van der Merwe. They're kicking it high in the air. That's probably why you see Max Merlin's in the 14 shirt and Freddie Stewart there as well. And then in terms of the finishers, Jamie George, Joe Marler and Will Stewart going to be going on at some point in that second half of front row replacements. Charlie Ewells and Alex Dornbrandt coming on in the rest of the forwards. They've gone for the 5-3 split as well. Did think they could load up on the 6-2 actually just to try and dominate that forward area. Harry Randall going to have that replacement scrum half. Looking forward to seeing more from him. Don't feel I've seen enough from him to quite judge how good he is, but I think he had a really good year last year for the games I did see him in. George Ford finally getting back into this team now. He's somehow still not the first choice fly half, but it'll be nice to see George Ford coming back in here. And finally, Jack Knoll, which is a name you don't really see in this England team a lot anymore, but I believe he's been playing really good rugby at club level, so nice to see him back in, of course. Centre, winger, fullback, he will go pretty much anywhere you chuck him into. Will go in a scrum even. I have seen him scrums before, so nothing wrong with that. I don't think that's a terrible move. But as an England team, it's a good England team, actually. I've heard about injuries and people not being able to play. This is still a good England team. They'll be looking for a good start going into the series, especially with a good few home games for them. So in terms of a prediction for this game, big calls. Oh, I think England. I've said Scotland in the prediction before the teams were released. I still might go down the Scotland route. I think I'm going to say Scotland to win. I don't think it's going to be a big win by any means. I think it's only going to be a few points, certainly within one score for me. It's going to be whether or not the couple of the youngsters in this England team can really show off and apply some speed, and just whether the Scotland defence can hold up and not be conceding tries and penalties as much as possible. I'm going to lean towards Scotland, but barely. I'm going to say Scotland to win by 3. I'm going to say by 3. I'm going to say they're just going to get it out there. Could even be a draw, actually. Wouldn't that be great if it was a draw? I don't see enough draws in the Six Nations. But that's going to be my guess, guys. But of course, I am but one man on the internet talking nonsense about rugby. So make sure you guys drop down in the comments who you think's going to win, what you think the score difference will be, who you think's going to do well, all that good stuff. Of course, we have also got the Fantasy League running alongside this. So anyone who hasn't signed up yet, make sure you guys sign up before the weekend, because after the weekend, you'll probably find yourself struggling to catch up a bit with everyone else, being 1 week down. There is an entire video on how to join the Fantasy League on the channel. It's the same icon that I got on screen for you guys right now. Make sure you go and check it out. But I hope you've all enjoyed today, guys. We will be doing one of these videos for all of the Six Nations games as they go on across the entire tournament. So make sure you subscribe just to keep up to date with all the latest videos as they come out. I'll see you all next time, guys. Bye-bye.